Hey, what's up everyone? John the Geek here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install Windows 8 Enterprise Edition onto your Mac OSX Mountain Lion using VirtualBox. Now, this particular method should also work for Snow Leopard if you're on Snow Leopard, and also if you're on Lion. And it should also work for Windows 7. So I'm going to go through and explain as much as I can because a lot of people have been asking a lot of questions, good questions, on my previous videos that I've made, and that I've left out some things. So now this is going to be kind of a more complete, or as complete as I can make it, to try to answer some of your questions that you've been asking. Right? So first off, I already know you're going to ask, why Windows 8 and why the Enterprise Edition? Well, this is a new operating system. There might be stuff in here that you want to try out and test out, new features. The new UI is different, so that's the reason why I'm going with Windows 8. And then the Enterprise Edition here is that it's a 90-day evaluation copy. So many of you out there are only going to be installing this probably for a class that you're taking, and there's some Windows programs that you have to have or have to use. You don't necessarily want to use Windows, but to get past this class you have to download and install Windows. And so this particular copy, the Enterprise Edition, has a 90-day evaluation versus the Windows 8 or Windows 7 Professional. They only give you about 30 days, right? Not quite enough to get through your class, but 90 days here might just be enough to get through your class. And anyways, so we're here on the Windows 8 or MSDN Evaluation Center from Microsoft, and a link of course is going to be in the description. So if you scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see that there's two versions, a 64-bit and 32-bit. And so before you can even actually get to here, you do have to sign in, and before you can download anyways, and it does require a Microsoft account, so that means a Hotmail account, a @Live account, a @Outlook account, although now if you were to sign up it's going to be an @Outlook account, right? So if you click on Get Started Now, it's going to ask you to sign in. I'm just going to use a Outlook account that I created just for the purpose of making videos and downloading stuff from Microsoft. I don't really use this email address, so I'll just go ahead and log in here. And I'm using Chrome, and I've had good success with using Chrome. And also I am on wireless here, but I do recommend that you use an Ethernet connection, a cable connection, because there might be some hiccups along the way. This isn't really the best way of downloading. If something were to happen, it will mess up your download, and then you spent like an hour or something trying to download something hangs up, you can't resume or anything like that. So use Ethernet. You might have some problems downloading this, and use Chrome, another browser. I've had problems with Safari trying to download this file here. Alright, so moving on to the VirtualBox program, this is our virtualized environment that we're going to install Windows into. So Windows thinks that it's on a PC. So this VirtualBox program here emulates PC components, right? Because that's what you need to install Windows. So once we are at the page here, you click on Downloads, and then we're going to click on VirtualBox for OSX hosts. Now, depending on when you watch this video, this number might be different. It might be a newer version. So we're going to click on that, and then we're going to click on Keep, and that's going to download. It's about 100 megabytes. And then we're also going to download something called the Extensions Pack right here. It allows support for USB 2.0 devices, right? That's kind of important. And so we'll click on that, and we'll click on the all supported platforms. That means whether you're on a Mac or Linux or Windows machine, this will work for that. All right. So through the magic of television, I have all the files conveniently downloaded here. Here's my ISO file here. That is the Windows 8 installation disk. So it's the entire installation disk contained within that one file there, right? And then here's my VirtualBox and the extensions pack. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on VirtualBox, and then I'm going to install VirtualBox here. So I'll double click on the package, click on continue, and this should only take about a couple minutes at most. Click on install, then you'll authenticate. Alright, so it just finished installing. We'll click on close here. Now we're going to start up VirtualBox so that we can install our extensions pack, we can go ahead and double click on the Oracle extension pack here. We'll click on install. We got to scroll all the way down, click on agree, then authenticate. Now it's installing the extension pack, and then now we're ready to build our system. Right, we're going to put together our computer. Right, so we're going to click on new, and then we're going to call this Windows 8. Then we're going to click on continue. Now we're going to allocate a certain amount of memory, RAM, to the system. I recommend 2 gigs of memory, so that means that your physical machine, whatever Mac that you're on, should have more than 2 gigs. If you only have 2 gigs on your machine, then you can allocate this 1 gig as the default size here. That's just barely enough to get Windows 8 running. Barely enough, specifically 32-bit. So if you have 4 gigs, allocate 2 gigs of RAM to this machine, 2048, right? If you have 8 gigs, great. And I get a lot of questions about when your virtual machine is running, when Windows is running, is it taking up memory? Yes, it's taking up the 2 gigs that you've allocated here, or up to 2 gigs, right? And when you're not running the virtual machine, after you've turned off your Windows or shut down your Windows virtualized machine, do you get the memory back? Does your computer get the memory back? Yes, it does. Mac OSX gets back the memory because this VirtualBox machine isn't running anymore, so it's not taking up memory. So your machine, your OS, gets the memory back. All right? So we'll click on continue, and then we're going to create a virtual hard drive now. And the virtual hard drive that we're going to create is a VDI, VirtualBox disk image. It does support different types of virtualized file types, but we'll leave it at VDI. So click on continue. Alright, so now we're going to choose the storage type, and we have either a dynamically allocated or a fixed size. And basically the explanation of what those 2 sizes are explained right here. And so I'll leave that up to you. I typically will do dynamically allocated, and so I'll just click on continue for that. Now we can name our specific file and choose a location. So by default, if you look here under users, under your user account, you'll see a VirtualBox VMs. You'll see a folder already made there. We just made that by creating this virtual machine. And inside here, this is where our Windows 8 virtualized machine lives, in this folder here, and we're choosing that destination. We could choose another spot for whatever reason. You could choose a desktop and click on new folder, and it'll put your virtualized environment in there, right? You could do that if you want. Now, the amount of space that you're going to allocate, it is possible to resize something after, but it is very difficult, and I'm not even sure how exactly you can resize it once you create your virtualized hard drive here. So this is the hard drive space that you're going to give Windows, right? And this takes up the space in your computer. But remember, I said dynamically allocated, meaning it only takes up what's being used, but it stops at the specified space here. So I am allowing 25 gigs of space to be used for this virtual machine. It doesn't mean that Windows is using right off the bat 25 gigs. Windows, after it installs, it's about 5 gigs, maybe 8 gigs at most. And with all your programs installed, it'll probably be about 10 to 12 gigs or whatever, right? So on the computer itself, it's only going to take up 12 gigs. And then as you use Windows, you'll download files on there, you'll install new programs, more programs, and stuff like that. It will grow dynamically, it'll grow, and the file size will get bigger as you add more things to it. So it'll stop though at 25 gigs, so that's what it's saying here, and it won't go beyond it. So this is a very important choice that you're going to have to make here, is to allocate the enough amount of space. Once you do this, it is possible to change it, but like I said, it's very difficult. So I know I'm not going to use more than 25 gigs for this, so I'm going to leave it at 25 gigs. So I'll click on create. Sorry for the lengthy explanation. A lot of people get confused by that whole system. So moving on, we've now created our system, but we gotta tweak it a little and we gotta customize it a little for Windows 8, right? You don't necessarily have to, but this is what I'm going to go through as part of my complete process here. So we have our Windows 8 machine, and here's where you can have a bunch of different virtualized machines. You can have Windows 7, you can have Linux, you can have all kinds of different ones. Right now I only have one. So I'm just going to click on this, and then I'll click on settings, and now we're going to make some changes here. And for the general settings, we can leave everything as is. Under the system here, we're going to uncheck this floppy drive, and we're going to move it down to the bottom. And if you notice here it says boot order, we're going to have the CD-ROM boot first, right? And then everything else you can leave alone. Now under processor, usually I like to allow 2 processors just so that things can run in Windows quickly and fast and powerful. But there's a bug, and it has to do with the USB port. When you want to plug in a USB device, such as a thumb drive here, if you allocate more than one CPU, there's a problem with you mounting a drive into your Windows machine or your host machine. Unfortunately, I don't know of any other way or any other fix, but from what I've read, everybody just says use one CPU, and you'll be able to plug in your thumb drive here. Now, if you know that you're not going to use the thumb drive, or there's some days you will use the thumb drive and there's some days you won't use the thumb drive, you can switch this at any time. You can some days make it 2 CPUs you want to use. Maybe you're going to use something that's processor intensive, and some days you could change it to just 1 CPU when you know you're going to be using a thumb drive. So for right now, because I'm going to show you how to mount a thumb drive, I'm going to leave it at 1 CPU. So moving on to acceleration. Alright, we're going to leave that alone, and if you want to know what it is, basically, if you just mouse over anything, pretty much almost everything in here, it'll pop up with an explanation, which is really helpful. And so, moving on to display, we're going to enable 2D and 3D acceleration, and we're going to allow it the maximum amount of memory. It's not really a whole lot, 256 megabytes out of the 2 gigs that we allocated earlier. This isn't really a whole lot. It doesn't impact a whole lot on your memory allocation, all right? And so remote display, I don't have another remote display, so you leave that alone. All right, so moving on to the storage. This is a very critical part of the installation process here. Right up here we have our controller, which is an IDE controller, and this is our optical disk. So our machine here has an optical drive. It has a DVD drive. And so right now our DVD drive is indicating that it's empty. And we can add another DVD drive if you wanted to. If you click on this, it would add a CD DVD device. If you clicked on this, it would add another hard disk, right? So right now it indicates that our disk drive is empty. So now we got to load it with this ISO right here. This is our installation disk. So when you click on it and you click on this little CD here, right, we can choose a virtual CD DVD disk file. Pay no attention to this right here. I did this earlier. But we would choose a CD DVD disk file. That's this file right here, right? So, or we could choose our physical optical disk that's built into the device, right? If we had a physical disk, you would choose the host drive here and you would stick in your disk, right? But we have our ISO file here. So we'll click on this. Now it's going to ask us, where's your disk then, right? It's on the desktop here, and that's the name of the file. And that's it. We've just loaded up the disk into the virtual machine, into our fake computer here, right? And it's very important that you keep this file where it's at when you loaded this up. If you put this file somewhere else, in another folder somewhere, our virtual machine does not know that you did that. And when you start it up, it's going to say, I can't find the disk. You said that the disk was here on the desktop and it's not there anymore. So it's very important that you keep this here throughout the installation. Afterwards, after you've unmounted this drive, you can do whatever you want with this file, right? You have to unmount it though. Alright, so moving on, we have this option here for live CD, and basically that just means that when you eject it out of your Windows machine, so you're in your Windows environment, and when you hit eject out of my computer, it doesn't actually eject it out of the virtualized machine here. Kind of complicated, so for now, I'm going to tell you to just leave it unchecked because it will stop us from properly installing this program here. And so that's pretty much it for this section here. We can leave pretty much everything alone. For the audio, you can leave alone. Now for the network here, it's supposed to automatically recognize whatever way you connect to the internet. I connect to the internet through wireless here, but if you are having trouble with your Windows machine being able to connect to the internet, it could be that your adapter here under advanced says cable connected, right? So it means that you're telling the machine that you're getting internet from the cable, but if you're not, then your virtual machine isn't going to get internet, right? So I would add on another adapter just to be on the safe side. Click on advanced and uncheck cable connected, and so basically you have one, oh, and also choose NAT. So basically you have one adapter saying that you're connected with a cable, and then you have one that says you're not connected with the cable, and share that, right? Which means that you're on wireless and you're sharing wireless. So whichever way you're connected to the internet, whether it be wired or wireless, you should be covered here, and your virtual machine should be able to access the internet. All right. Moving on to ports and USB, you can enable these two. That's fine, and that's just standard. You can leave that alone. What these filters are just pretty much means that you can add a filter for a device, meaning every time your computer starts, it will mount a specific device that you would filter out here. So right now, the only things I have that are USB plugged into this machine is these devices here. So then what it would mean is that every time I start up my virtual machine, it would load these devices in the virtual machine. I'm not going to do that here, and I don't really need this filtering feature here, and we'll get to mounting our USB drives later. And the shared folders here, we're going to do this later as well, because there's something that we need to install in our virtual machine in order to achieve the shared folders option here. And so that's pretty much it. We can go ahead and click on OK. All of our settings have been set here. We can now click on Start, and what it's going to do is that it's going to load up, and as you can see there, we already got our Windows logo. It's recognizing, and so we're just going to go through the installation process much like you would on a regular desktop for this. Alright, so we're presented with the first step of the installation process. We click on Next, we click on Install Now, and then setup is now starting. We have to choose our hard drive that we're going to install. So we'll accept the license term, click on Next, and we want to do a custom install. We're going to click on Drive Options here, click on New, and then Apply, and then OK. And then we'll leave this selected, our 24 gigs here of space left over. Click on Next. And so what's happening now is that it's copying the installation files off of our disk onto the hard drive. And so after it's done copying, it's going to do a restart. Now, some people have had problems where it would just restart and go back into the installation process again. It kind of just loops over and over. And that is because when it restarts, it's supposed to eject the drive. And if it didn't eject the CD properly, it's still loaded in there. When the machine starts up, you told it to keep booting from a disk in the disk drive. So it's going to restart the installation process again. And for that, what you would do is you can either shut down the machine, close out the machine here, that would turn off Windows, and then you would have to unmount the device or unmount the disk drive. So if you go to Devices here and you click on Remove Disk from Virtual Drive, that's taking the disk out, right? And then you would start the virtual machine again, and then it would continue on the installation process, right? Kind of a hassle. You shouldn't have to go through this problem if you unchecked that live CD. If you left that live CD DVD option unchecked that we had earlier. Alright, so we'll let this finish, and when it's done, we should have a fully installed Windows 8 machine. Alright, so we finished the installation process and we're here at the Windows 8 setup, and I'm just going to go ahead and give it a name. I'll just call it Windows 8 VM, right? And then I'll just go ahead and use Express settings. And then it wants me to sign in using my Microsoft account, but I'll sign in without an account. And then I'll say local account. Now it's asking for a name, right? And then it's going to go ahead and finish the installation process. And then we are now going to have to wait for this to finish. Alright, so we've finished installing Windows Now completely. So pay no attention to the windy noise. That's the laptop fan going crazy because it's running a virtualized machine. Anywho, we're going to now install or plug in our thumb drive into the machine. So I'll go ahead and do that. And so once that's plugged in, it's going to mount here. We need to actually unmount this off of Mac. So it's like unplugging it from the Mac, but you leave it plugged in, obviously. And then what you do is you're going to click on the USB icon down here, or you can go to Devices and go to USB devices. As you can see there, Corsair Voyager GT 3.0, that's my thumb drive. I'll click on that, and what it's doing is that it's actually connecting, plugging in to the machine here, our thumb drive. And as you can see there it is right there. It's come up. I'm actually going to go to change my desktop icons real quick. Sorry, a little bit of housekeeping here. And so I'm going to double click on my computer, and there is my thumb drive. Right there, here is my optical drive. It still has the disk, the installation disk plugged into it, so if I wanted to remove it, I could just select down here and click on Remove Disk from Virtual Drive. So it's like ejecting it, and as you can see there, it just ejected it. Alright, so now what I'm going to show you is the shared folders functionality. Alright, so while we're in our Windows machine here, we're going to click on Devices, and you're going to click on Install Guest Editions. And so this does things like put in the Windows drivers for the Aero glass, fancy looking glass or whatever, and also sharing folders, networking type of functionalities. So essentially when you clicked on that, it installed or inserted a disk into the drive here, the virtual drive. So we'll double click on it. Now it's going to ask us, do we want to install this software that's on this disk? Obviously we do. And so it's going to go ahead and start up this program here. We'll click on next again, and click on next, and then it should pop up a couple times. Some things to install. Yes, we'll go ahead and install it. And then yes, install again. And so the screen just flickered. It just turned on, activated the fancy 3D effects. Right? And then I'm going to say manually reboot later because I'm going to shut the machine down. So I'll click on Finish, and I'll go ahead and shut the machine down. And you can either go through you can either go through this way here, up at the top, go to Settings, and hit Power and Shut Down, or you can just hit this X right here, and you can say Send the shutdown signal. It's like telling the machine, hey, go shut down. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like right now, a little bit of a demo fail. It did not work. So I got to go through the old-fashioned way and go to Power Shut Down. So now our system's shutting down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into VirtualBox. Alright, so we're at our VirtualBox manager here, and we're going to click on Settings for our specific virtual machine. We'll go to Shared Folders. Now we're going to add a folder, and we're going to specify where to put this folder. And we're going to go to the desktop here, and we'll choose a new folder, and I'm just going to call it Shared. I recommend that you call it something very simple, no special characters, underscores, or apostrophes, or exclamation marks, because Windows might not recognize it. So straight up just basic simple characters. I'll call it shared. I don't know why it's popping up with a folder here to tell us where to look in, but I'll choose the desktop again and I'll call it shared, and then we'll click on OK. And this, for some reason, this blank window is stuck here, and I don't know why that is. And I'm going to go ahead and quit VirtualBox after you hit OK. And I'll just quit VirtualBox just to get rid of that blank box that's there. I don't know why that's there. And now we're ready to start our virtual machine. And once this starts up again, we're going to be able to go to our folder here that has our shared stuff. So in the Windows machine, there's going to be a folder in there, and when you drop something into the folder here on Mac, it'll show up in Windows, or vice versa. When you put a file into the Windows folder here, it'll show up on your Mac drive there. Alright, so now that we've restarted, we're going to go back to our desktop here, and then we're going to go to Computer. Then on the left here, where it says Network, you'll click on that, and then VBox Server, that's where our shared folder is. And voila, there it is right there. So let's say, for example, I have this file here, and I dropped it into the shared folder. I hit refresh, and there's our file there. And so if I were to delete this, it will actually delete it out of the folder here. I don't want to do that right now, but you get what I'm talking about. So that essentially right there is the shared folder functionality. Now to just show you a little bit of some features here, we can switch to full screen mode. It tells you how to get out of full screen mode once you do it. So now I'll just go ahead and hit switch. So this is the full-on Windows experience. And so I don't know how exactly to get out of here. Oh, great. I should have read the instructions. I think it was Command F. Yeah. Alright. So then there's other views. Seamless mode, that pretty much means that it kind of blends both your Mac OSX desktop and Windows desktop into one. Scale mode, which is pretty much what it is now. If you notice how it resizes your window and it's not at a fixed size. Sometimes it's a little quirky. Sometimes it locks up just like as it did. Oh, there we go. Alright. And that's pretty much it for the Windows resizing. Alright, and so for my final act, what I'm going to be doing now is showing you how to delete your virtual machine. Just getting rid of it after you're done, because right now it's taking up gigs and gigs of space. As a matter of fact, let's take a look as to how much our installation is taking up. And by the way, did you follow that? This is where your VirtualBox default location is. You go to the hard drive, users, your main user home folder, and then you go to VirtualBox VMs, and then Windows 8 here. Let's get info. Right now it's taking up almost 7 gigs of space, right? And so what we're going to do here we're at our VirtualBox Manager. You right click on your VirtualBox here, and then you're going to click on Remove if you want to get rid of this. Now speak now, forever hold your peace. This deletes everything, all the files in your virtual machine, in your operating system. So example, if you had documents on your desktop in your Windows machine, this is going to delete it all. Alright, so we click on remove, and then we can click on delete all files. If we look at our folder here, everything is gone. I guess I should have showed you before that, but essentially what you could have done was just also take this, throw it in the trash, and delete it from your VirtualBox Manager as well, and that's it. It's all gone. Everything that I've just installed and configured is all gone. Alright, and so that's pretty much it. Hopefully that was informative for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Sorry for the windy noise. That's the fan on the laptop. Not much I could do about that. That other windy noise is my voice.